Hi there. Just doing a quick sound check because the last time we did a webinar, you could see me but not hear me for a couple of minutes. So I'm just hoping that you can, in fact, hear me. Um, all right, I think we're good. So yeah, first of all, just want to thank everybody for joining the webinar today. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Lightning Conductor web part, which is a component for Microsoft SharePoint and Microsoft SharePoint Online. We're going to be using the product to perform all different types of aggregation of SharePoint lists and libraries, but also going outside of the Microsoft SharePoint environment as well, and looking at how we can report on content coming from not just the SharePoint listing libraries, but also from other Microsoft 365 apps. So this can include things like Microsoft Planner, Microsoft To Do, maybe OneDrive and Teams as well, and so on. And equally, we're also going to take a look at how we can connect to data that sits outside of Microsoft 365 completely. So that could be things like Salesforce.com or also JIRA, SQL databases, Oracle databases, and so on. So before we get into all of that, I'm just going to do a very quick intro for those of you that have not attended a webinar before. So I'll keep this fairly brief, and we'll spend the majority of our time taking a look at the product because there's a lot to get through. So yeah, first of all, I'm Brett, founder of Lightning Tools, Microsoft 365 MVP, and yeah, for the last 18 years, we've been building different products around Microsoft SharePoint, and each of these products will complement SharePoint in one way and make it easier for you as an organization to be able to get the most out of SharePoint. So these include several different products, including permissions management, forms and integration, and things like that as well. We're headquartered in the UK. We have an office in Orlando, Lightning Tools LLC, based over that side of the pond. And yeah, we've built a variety of different customers in lots of different industry sectors around the world. And yeah, providing our tool sets to them. So you can categorize our products into several different areas. So we have our permissions management tool, which is DeliverPoint. We had a webinar on that just a couple of months ago. If anybody wants to go back and watch the recording, you can. So that will dive in deep as to how you can empower site owners to be able to report and manage permissions across your SharePoint Online or SharePoint on-premises environment. We've got the content and aggregation and visualization, which is everything we're going to look at today. So that includes the Lightning Conductor, which is the main part of the webinar. We'll also be touching on the data viewer and Lightning filters and how they can complement the Lightning Conductor as well. And we've also got forms design and automation. So we have our solution architect application, which is known as Lightning Tools Form Studio. And with that, you can build out solutions with scheduled actions and triggered actions. You can package and deploy permissions and custom forms and so on, and deploy that to different SharePoint sites. It's extremely intuitive to use, and again helps you to build some very advanced solutions. And then we've got a sort of in context version of that called Lightning Forms. This is embedded into the SharePoint environment, which empowers the business user to also build out their own forms, their own actions, and so on. And equally, if you've still got a lot of legacy forms in InfoPath, we can help you migrate those to Lightning Forms, Lightning Tools Form Studio, or also to Power Apps if you prefer to stay within the realm of Microsoft. And finally, also sitting on its own at the bottom here is our discussion board tool, which is known as Social Squared. So that's everything that we do as a company. And like I said, we're going to focus on the Lightning Conductor today. And we're going to start off with just an overview of what the Lightning Conductor can do. Even if you're using the Lightning Conductor already, quite often people use it for a specific purpose, and that could be rolling up document libraries or rolling up tasks or something like that. We're going to go way beyond that today and look at different types of content that you may want to aggregate and report upon, and we'll take a look at how you can build out some very rich reports across that content. We'll be connecting web parts together for dynamic displays and so on as well. And we'll also have a look at the Microsoft 365 content, aggregating that, and then getting into some advanced aggregation techniques where we go into the advanced mode of the Lightning Conductor, and we start to take a look at connecting to things like Microsoft Copilot connectors and so on. Okay, so benefits of the Lightning Conductor. Let's just start off there. So with the Lightning Conductor, we can, as we just established, aggregate lots of content. And the reason why we might want to do that is because nowadays the content is spread across lots of different apps, not just lots of different sites and site collections. We actually built the Lightning Conductor back in 2007. It was one of the first web parts that we created, and back then its message was quite simple. We were aggregating content from across site collections because Microsoft couldn't, and they had the content query web part, which was a tool that you could aggregate from within a site collection. And Microsoft were pushing out best practices on having multiple site collections back then in SharePoint on premises. Yeah, the challenge was you couldn't aggregate content outside of that boundary. That changed. Microsoft actually came out with the highlighted content web part and so on, which was powerful, but less flexible in terms of its usage, and it was difficult building the views of the content that you wanted. And fast forwarding to today, there's actually a number of different aggregation tools that you can use right out of the box. So things like recent documents and news and things like that you can have within a hub site and show aggregated content coming from that hub. But it's not just the list and libraries, and it's not just sites where content resides. So the Lightning Conductor has grown into something where no matter where your content is, you can get it and display it in one place. And that's not just for you as an individual, but it makes a great addition to like a communication site within inside of SharePoint, where people see when they go into that communication site information that is relevant to them, whether it's lists and library content or whether it's coming from outside of Microsoft 365. And it becomes dynamic, it's audience targeted, and effectively you're spending a lot less time navigating around trying to remember where the document was. Was it in OneDrive? Which site was it in? Was it in a document library or on the file system, etc.? Yeah, you'll be able to find that content by navigating straight to where it is. So the different types of data sources that you can connect to, lists and libraries we've mentioned. You can connect to lists and libraries in two different ways. You can connect to them using the graph or also with the client-side object model. That doesn't mean you have to write any code. It's just what we're doing when you select that option. So the benefit of using the client-side object model when you connect to different lists and libraries is that you get real-time results. And if you think of the moment you step foot into an airport, you're seeing the list of flights and departure times and so on. You need that information to be up to date to the very second, or if you're seeing stock information or anything like that, bus timetables and so on, you need it to be completely up to date. However, if you're looking at aggregating vast amounts of documents and maybe filtering it and so on, those documents don't change all that regularly. And this is where performance often is the priority. So what we can do in that case is use search. So when we're using the search indexing, we're getting the results immediately, albeit it may be 15 or 20 minutes before they update based on document changes. So if somebody checks in a document, for example, we might not see in the Lightning Conductor that they checked it in for a short time afterwards. But that's when we have that trade-off as to what's most important, whether it's real-time aggregation or performance. Once upon a time, we were just looking at sites and site collections and aggregating content that way. But now, of course, for the last few years, we've had Microsoft 365 groups, and those Microsoft 365 groups contain SharePoint sites as well as planner plans and so on. So you can aggregate the content through those Microsoft 365 groups, and it's using the Graph API in order to be able to get to that content that way. And then we've also got the Microsoft Graph connectors and the external Graph connectors, which are now called Copilot connectors, which makes it a little bit less confusing. So with those, you can get to other Graph entities, so things like Planner, To Do, OneDrive, etc. And then also using the Copilot connectors now, you can get to things like Salesforce and JIRA, websites, SQL databases, etc. And we'll be having a look at all of that today. Now, it's not just a way of connecting to the data, there's multiple ways of displaying the data as well. If you imagine a SharePoint list with the powerful views that you get within inside a SharePoint list and the ability to create multiple views on that SharePoint list, you get the same behavior with the Lightning Conductor. You can build multiple views. You can select different rows of different columns. You can add conditional formatting and grouping and aggregate functions and things like that, all within inside the grid view. No code required. You also have the JSON view, which if you want to create something that is completely unique to you and your organization, maybe it's based on custom lists or a custom entity of sorts, and you want a very different display to what we offer, you can achieve that in JSON, or you can also use one of our JSON templates as well. So we've got some built-in calendar views, tile views, picture views, etc. And you can just use those as they are, or we also open up the code to you. So if you do want to customize those in any way, that's something you can also do. We're going to skip over the XSLT bit because that's just for people like me who are getting on a bit. So XSLT was really there for backwards compatibility, but offered a similar sort of functionality to the JSON. And right up to date is the adaptive cards. And adaptive cards are where we can build using the Microsoft Adaptive Card Designer whatever view we want as well. So that's a sort of no code offering to create a custom view of how you want to see your content. And we've got lots of different examples that you can use right out of the box on that one as well. So where you can use a Lightning Conductor, if you think about where people are spending their time, you may be with inside a SharePoint site, could be a communication site or a team site, and any of the pages that support those sites or communication sites you can add on to as a web part. You can also add the Lightning Conductor either as a page, a SharePoint page into Teams, or you can actually add it as a tab itself. So that gives things like recent documents and tasks and to do and things like that, right where you're spending most of your time in Teams. And then we've also got Viva Connections. So that is also going to expose that information into Teams, but also gives you a nice, well laid out SharePoint communication site where you can also display the content. And the way that we can display it there is either as the web part or actually as a adaptive card component on a dashboard web part. And those dashboard web parts have now been opened up to the rest of SharePoint, not just communication or connections sites. You can literally use them wherever you like, and we'll be touching on that a bit today as well. So we will jump in and take a look, of course, at the Lightning Conductor. So the example that we've got here is a human resources communication site, and associated with this, so this is a hub site as well as a communication site, and associated with this hub site is another site which contains which is basically a SharePoint team site, and that contains sort of working documents around employment contracts and that type of thing. But this is, you know, representing the human resources department as a nice looking intranet type communication site, and this is where we want to create some meaningful content and display it here, rather than having to navigate forth to the team site. So what we're going to do is just scroll down. Let's edit the page, put that into edit mode, and yeah, you'll see, if you haven't looked at this for a little while, how Microsoft has been adding lots of nice little areas. So just a couple of side notes. You'll notice that there's a new flexible section. Lightning Conductor will work as those with those flexible sections, and they've got full width sections and things like that now. And basically means the Lightning Conductor on the flexible section can be positioned anywhere. You can choose it like on a little grid, rather than it fitting just in the left column or just in the right column. You can have exact positioning and sizing on a flexible section. And of course, the full width section and so on speaks for itself. We're going to add here, first of all, a 2-column section, and then I'm going to add a 1-column section that we're going to work with today. And in this 1-column section, I'm going to first of all edit the properties on that section, and we're going to go over to the design, because this is a nice looking intranet site. We don't just want a white background. I can either add my own background, or I can choose one of these custom backgrounds that come with SharePoint nowadays. And within that section, we're going to go in and add the Lightning Conductor. So we'll select the Lightning Conductor in here, and you can see that we've got that ready to go. And as we hit configure, this takes us into the configuration where we can start to get at our content. So this isn't just limited to news or documents, like recent documents. Literally any type of data we can get at. But what we've got under the quick configuration is some of those more common type of rollups that people would like to perform. Documents is right up there as one of the most common uses of the Lightning Conductor, as is tasks and events. We overcome a lot of the challenges that people have with forget the name of it now, but where we can combine multiple calendars. You had a limitation of 10 from the same site collection and things like that. This goes beyond those limitations. You can have as many calendars as you like, displaying with inside a Lightning Conductor in a calendar view as well. So the first 50% of these are all lists and libraries, and then we get into some graph entities as well on here. And the other is going to just take us into the advanced mode where you can basically connect to whatever you want. So we'll start off looking at some of the quick configuration options. We'll begin with documents. Now, you will notice whenever I select a type of data, whether it's documents or tasks or events, etc., that the view types will change. So if it is events, we could display those events in a calendar format, which is one of those JSON views, or we can have it in the grid view, or there's an adaptive card view as well. If we're looking at documents, notice that we've got a tile view or the grid view. So we always get grid view, the tile view or the calendar view, and so on, sort of specific to the type of data that we're aggregating. With the document selected, the next drop down, you'll see predefined filters. So of course, we don't always just want to see all of the documents. I might want a view that shows just the documents that I'm currently working on or I created. So we have that built in, or documents that I've checked out as well. So I'm disappearing on holiday tomorrow, which is nice. And what I don't want to do is leave any documents checked out, because then nobody else can work on them. So this is a great way where I can make sure that I've checked in those checked out documents, and other people are free to continue collaborating on that content. And then we have some sort of fairly generic ways of getting at the data. So these are not just single document libraries we're connecting to. We can go and get document libraries from multiple different sites and different site collections. They could be in the hub with the associated sites, could be across the entire tenant, could be across certain site collections and so on. So we can choose where that content will come from. And you'll notice the top 50% again is all real time. The ones that say search, that's where we can do much larger aggregations across vast quantities of data, have it display immediately, but you don't get that sort of real-time result. So we're going to begin with the current hub site and the associated sites. We're going to stick with the grid view, and you'll also see some checkboxes that are typically associated with each type of data that you're connecting to as well. So we're going to display people avatars. So we'll see the avatar for the modified by and the created by. The document preview allows us to combine two web parts together, which you'll see in a moment. So as I hit save, we then get our documents coming back. So this is the avatar currently loading. We've got folders in here, and the files within those folders. This is not typical of a rollup tool. Most rollup tools will flatten the folders to give you just a view of the content. You've got the choice with the Lightning Conductor as to whether you want to see a flat view or whether you want it grouped by the folders, and that would go into the subfolders as well for that content. So what we're seeing here is just the sort of generic file name created by, modified by, but whilst we're still in mode, we can change the view. So as we hit the drop down on any of the columns, you'll notice that we can get into the column settings, and we can move the columns around, we can hide columns or show additional columns. There's no guesswork like there is with the highlighted content web part here. You don't have to know the name of the field that you want to put into your view. These are all associated with the current document library source. So you can choose your metadata from here. I'm going to choose file size as an example and drop that in to my view. Everything can also be data formatted. So as we go down to the more settings, you'll notice that we can change from long date to a short date. We can add grouping, formatting, add summary functions to that column. So things like sum, min, max, and what have you. We can make multiple line columns, add some custom formatting in here as well, which actually carries across the JSON from the underlying view, and so on. So as we save that, you'll see that this goes down to that short date format rather than the long date format, and so on. And specifically, we work with just about every data type on there. So if I go into the formatting for the, if I go into the more settings for the file size, you'll see that we can also change that display format to be in kilobytes, megabytes, or gigabytes, and so on. All right, so we've got that functionality as well. And equally, now that we're paying a bit more for storage, one thing we might also want to do is use a bit of conditional formatting on the file size column. So what we could do is say if anything is greater than 50,000, these are all small documents, what I can do is highlight that with a nice little pill. So we can choose reddish and save that. And we could also add another row of formatting for anything smaller than that to show it in green or something if we wanted to. But if I just save this one, maybe didn't quite get that right. Let's just jump back in there. Maybe too many zeros or something. Oh, I said equal. I didn't say greater than. Sorry, that'd be why. I didn't have anything exactly 50,000. So let's once again just go through and apply that. There we go. And now we've got that conditional formatting coming through on the file size, so we can spot our larger files amongst the aggregation. So the next thing I want to do is just show a document preview. And just for a moment, I'm going to drag the Lightning Conductor up into this 2-column section. Next to it, I'm going to add another instance of the Lightning Conductor, and we'll configure that one. And all I'm going to do on here when I go to configure it is point it again at the document library. But when it says, how do I want to refine it? I'm just going to get the content from the selected document of another Lightning Conductor. And that's all I need to do. Just hit save. And now what we have is the ability to select a row from the Lightning Conductor. And as we do that, it loads the content inside the other web part. And of course, this is a bit squished on the screen because I've got the panel open here. I'm in edit mode. But that's a great way of finding the content that we want to look at without having to open and close documents all the time when we're opening that content. Okay, so that's a little bit to documents, and those documents can come from not just the document libraries as mentioned, but also from OneDrive and so on as well. So if we wanted to, we could name this accordingly. So as we go into the properties here, we've got our view. We could call this human resources documents, and I could beneath that have OneDrive documents, and of course we could have my documents or my checked out documents and so on. So using the graph, I could come down here to the OneDrive items, and it's items that are shared with me or my drive items, and we can save that one. And notice how we've now got that ability to flip between documents coming from OneDrive or documents coming from document libraries. And these are currently in a drop-down view, which is not always obvious to everybody. So what we can also do is switch that to be tabs. So as we choose the tabs here, notice how we've now got tabs where we can select the content that we want to see. And you can also go in and configure an icon for each of those tabs as well. So as we set an icon, I could just have something that sort of resembles document libraries and OneDrives and so on in there. Yeah, a little cloud one, that'll be fine. There we go. All right, so we've got some content coming from or document related content. Other types of content that we have include news, so especially around a hub. There's great ways of creating news nowadays. So as we come down here to say I want to create a new news post, Microsoft has put together some great templates in here. So we could have one on resources. I'm just going to say I want to use that template, and yeah, we've got this welcome in here. We can go into the properties. Let's just call it a welcome news, and we'll post that. It will actually email this news article out as well if we wanted to, which I'm just going to skip, and we'll navigate back home. And what we want to do is display that news actually inside the Lightning Conductor as well. So we don't just have to stick with one theme. We don't have to stick with documents inside the one instance. We could have multiple instances if we want to, but equally we can come in here into the properties and create a news view. So we'll use the news option in here coming from the current hub, and you've got two different styles where we can display that as a carousel or as a list of news. And they can also be linked together. So as we select a view of news from the Lightning Conductor, we could actually go and see the carousel news, another web part as well. But yeah, there's our aggregated news as well as our OneDrive and our documents. So another common request is, as I mentioned earlier, to see different events that are occurring, especially on a intranet type environment. So create a new event called events, a new view called events. And in here, we can have event lists if we want to. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment, because it's not as straightforward as that nowadays. But down at the bottom here, I've got actually some Outlook events. So this is using the Microsoft Graph. And it could be yeah, my calendar, and we can display that in a calendar view as well. So as we hit save here, we've now got our events showing as we select that. I might need to just republish that page for that one to render. Let's just give that a go. Yep, there we are. So you can see in here that it's got some of the daily meetings and things like that that I've got going on. And what we can do with the Lightning Conductor is actually combine that with event lists from SharePoint sites as well. So it doesn't just have to be one set of calendar entries coming from my Outlook. It could also be coming from elsewhere too. And just by the way, in case you're asking this question, this is my Outlook, but other people will see their Outlook when they sign into this. Possible for anybody else to see my Outlook unless I've shared that with them. This is always going to be within the graph showing them their information, not my information. All right, so that's one way of looking at that. Now, just another side note, when we come up here to create a new list nowadays, gone are the days where we had the different templates. We had a template for tasks and a template for contacts and template for events, etc. Now we've got all of these templates, but they're all just custom lists. There's no way of differentiating one from the other based on the type of list, because they're all just custom lists with a different title. So if I went in and said I want an event itinerary, we get a nice little example with content. And if I use that, so it's going to call it event itinerary. I'm fine with that. Let's just create it. So we have our view here, but I'm just going to jump into the site contents. And this is an old classic events list where the type was events list. now the type for my newly created event itinerary is list. So it's really hard to go and say, I want to roll up all of the event lists from my SharePoint environment. But we can still get it using the Lightning Conductor, which is the good news. So what we're going to do is just head back home and edit the page once more. And in the Lightning Conductor, we will go back and configure this. So what we're going to do in here is create another one called HR events. We'll go into the properties. Now, the last one was coming from Outlook. This won't get that content as I've just described. This is looking for classic events lists. So it's going to miss out on the newly created list that I just generated. So instead, what we do is we go into the advanced mode using the object model, rollup provider, and JSON provider. We're going to point it at individual lists. So now we can navigate into our human resources hub and select the list in question. Now, this may take a moment to see that newly created one because it's based on indexing and so on, but I did create one earlier called HR training for that reason. And notice the icon here, it doesn't resemble, it's just a generic list icon. Oh, it is there, sorry, event itinerary, there we go, it has got it. So I could select both of those. They're both from the same template, they both have the same columns and so on. And as we go into columns in here, we get to see things like the title and start. We've got start, date, and time as well if we want to. And I think there's one called end somewhere as well, or end, date, and time. Now, with those columns, what we can do is just jump into the display section, choose calendar as our JSON view to see that content. And in here, we map the columns. So the start date is just called start. The end date is just called end. Title column is called title. And we could also populate some of these other columns as well if we want to. And as we hit save now, we can go into our HR events. And sure enough, we're aggregating from those newly created lists where we couldn't differentiate them from other types of newly created lists. All right, so we've built up a bit of a collection of different views of different content in there. And yeah, users can just come in, use that web part to see the type of information that they're after. All right, so just moving on a little bit, everything we've done by that last little example was using the quick configuration. And that's powerful for many, many different scenarios. But what we're going to do is just have a quick look at the advanced configuration and how we can do more specific types of content rollup using that. And this could include still SharePoint lists and libraries or graph entities, but we can equally be more granular in our selection of where the content's coming from, different types of content type. We can build more advanced filters. We can create calculated columns and things like that in here as well as get to the Microsoft Copilot connectors for data living outside of our immediate Microsoft 365 tenant. So just breaking it up a little bit, in fact, over on the right-hand side, I thought this was quite nice that this is one of the new templates that Microsoft provides for communication sites. And I don't know if you ever wondered how they put this nice little view together, but it's actually an image. So that's just one image. It's not actually a real dynamic thing. So what if we wanted that as a real dynamic thing? What we could do is add a little Lightning Conductor in there. So as we configure this one, we're going to, in fact, just cheat a little moment, and we will we're just going to actually choose this classic events list. That will do. So we'll aggregate all of events coming from the current site, and I'm going to show you this card view, and we're going to have a look at this card view in the advanced mode. So as I save that, notice how we've now got actually something more dynamic showing on there as to what the upcoming events are. And You may not want things like the command bar on there, so you can actually hide all of that stuff if you want it to look more in tune with the styling. So as I refresh this now, yeah, we can see that we've got some cybersecurity training on Thursday the 21st, 24, and Copilot training as well. And we can go in and view the events there, rather than just displaying an image in that component. Okay, so that's another example of something that you can do to help bring information into your communication sites. Back onto the main Lightning Conductor, let's add another new view in here. And what we're going to do is bring in some Lightning Tools posts. And the way that we're going to do this one is in the advanced mode. And where the content is going to come from is through a Copilot connector. So when you go into the SharePoint Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and you may need obviously an administrator to help you create the connector if it doesn't exist already. You can go under Search and Intelligence, and you'll notice in here you've got these new Copilot connectors, which were previously until recently called graph connectors. So if we go into the Copilot connectors, you can see some of the connectors that I have already created. So some connecting to Azure, a CSV file, we've got JIRA, and then we've also got the Lightning Tools website as well. And these synchronize every so many hours. So you can see this one updated actually 4 hours ago. But if I want another new connection, I just hit add connection. And these are all the things that you can connect to. So there's some recommended ones. There's collaboration, communication. So things like JIRA that you can see. We can have a look at that. We've also got Adobe Cloud in there. We've got Salesforce. There's Azure and Oracle. All sorts of different data sources that you might be using some of these already in something like a Power BI, but you can also use them as well using the Lightning Conductor. So we've got one already connecting to our website, and what I could then do is come down to it, and I'm going to use an adaptive card display provider, and we'll explain more about that in a moment. But in the drop down, it's actually showing me those Copilot connectors that we can go through and consume. So as we choose this one here called Lightning Tools, we can query it and so on, or just accept how it is. These are the columns coming from the information that it's gathered, and then under the display is the sample input data, and then my ability to go through and build an adaptive card using some code. But the good thing is you don't need to actually write the code. You can actually just visit the new adaptive card designer, there we go, and that will generate the code for you. So in here, you've got the card payload editor, and what we can do is go and grab that content there. And drop that into the sample data. And then we can start to build our view, however we want that view to look like, using all of these different controls. So we would then map those. So if we wanted to display an image, for example, we drop that in, and we map the image to some of our sample code. And whilst you don't have too much time to show all of that, you could also use some of these cards. So if we select this one, for example, it's still got my sample data in here, and now we get to map each of these with any of the properties coming from the Lightning Conductor. So these are some of the things that we've built for you that you can just go ahead and use. With this particular example, whenever you create a Copilot connector in the admin panel, it generates some adaptive card code for you. And all you have to do is tick that box to say, use the card from this data source. And you can actually view that or view a sample of it. We can highlight that, copy it, drop it into the adaptive card designer, Struggling with that one a little bit. But in theory, that's what we can do. So I'm using the original data source, and we can set pagination and things like that. And as I choose save, notice that by clicking onto Lightning Tools posts, that we've now got information about all the blog posts that we've been writing displayed inside the Lightning Conductor, and we can go through and style that using that adaptive card designer. Okay, so it's more of an advanced technique using the Lightning Conductor, but again, just an illustration that we can really get content coming from anywhere. This is actually WordPress content that we've got coming through. Okay, so just jumping back into the advanced mode, I'll talk you through some of the other properties that we've got. So first of all, under the web part tab here, these are the different methods of connecting to things. So we have the search rollup provider. As we move across to the data source tab, it's actually now expecting a search query. So we can go and get content using search this way. And that can be as simple as just saying, I want to bring back items matching a particular content type. And that content type you can select from here. So I could say the content type that I want to look at is document. Select that, and then as we move on, you get columns coming from the document content type. And we can actually just, I'm not going to spend too much time styling it, but if we just save that, it's called new view 1. This has just brought back all of the documents coming from search, and of course we can go through and refine what that view looks like with a bit of styling. We can change to the object model rollup provider. This allows me to use the grid view, the Excel view, the adaptive card view, etc. And under the data source tab, rather than configuring a search, it just means that we can do things like select items from multiple site collections. So I can say I want this site collection, this site collection, this site collection, and maybe this site collection. And by checking the box, we can have associated content as well. And then we specify the type of data. So in there, I could say I want document libraries coming from there. We can choose the content type that we want and set pagination and so on using the properties at the bottom there. And then we get to configure the view here. So this is where we can, again, choose things like name, modified by, modified date, file size, etc. You can drag those into the order that you want them to appear in. And once again, if I just hit save, you'll see that this new view 1 still displaying documents, but only from those site collections that I selected, and this time they're being displayed in real time. So that's those first couple. The graph rollup provider data source tab changes there as well. So with this one, we could go through and connect to any of these different entities. So we've got things like the user entity, which is useful. And as we select the columns view, notice we've got user properties being displayed in here. So we do have things like the mail address, the job title, there is name or something in here as well. Given name, maybe. Birthdays, you can create a birthday list. I'm just not seeing the full name or first name. Hoping something will jump out at me. Surname might do. There we go. So as we hit display, these are the columns that we've chosen. You can then set the display format, so you can have that avatar on there and what have you. It's missing something. Oh yeah, under the data source tab, we actually say all users. There we go. And there we are. We've got kind of a list of users that needs a bit of tidying up. But yeah, we can query that information as well via the graph. So lots of things we can get to through the graph provider. And the Microsoft 365 group provider, under data source, you can query things like teams. So we can show entities from all teams or from selected groups, and so on. And this also uses the graph. So yeah, doing things like files that belong to certain teams, or team calendar events and things like that, you can also get to using this view, and then displaying them either in a column view or in a JSON view if you want to. So we can go back to the JSON view and choose an agenda, group agenda view. Yep, there we go. And yeah, we've got all of the events going on in each of the different teams that I selected in one agenda view, so we can select which events we don't want to miss from there. Okay, so that's quite a lot of configuration. What I'm going to do, because this is getting quite busy, I'm just going to drop that one off and do a quick Lightning Conductor aggregation of some tasks, and we're then going to work with a couple of the other web parts. So we'll bring some tasks coming from the current tenant in real time. There's not too many of them in a task view. And the reason why I chose this one was simply because we've got multiple columns that we can filter on easily. And one of the things I want to do, first of all, is to display some of this information in a data visualization. And that's where I'm going to use the data viewer for that. So the data viewer is something we can use to connect to the Lightning Conductor and display the results in a chart. So with this, we've got two Lightning Conductors on the page. I'll take a guess that it's that one. We're going to work with all the retrieved items. And yeah, no, I chose the wrong Lightning Conductor. So you can actually go in and name your Lightning Conductor, which is useful for this reason. Okay, so we'll work with the selected items or retrieved items. Okay, great. So now we've got task status and we've got ID. Each list item gets an ID. So we'll select those two, and notice when we go to the display, we get an initial chart. I'm going to change that to a pie chart. We're going to group the chart, and now we've got a good percentage of all the aggregated content across the entire tenant. How many of those tasks are completed, how many are deferred, how many are in progress, and so on. And of course, you can go in and style that however you choose. If you want theme colors coming through, you can apply the theme colors and so on. So as we save it, we've got a nice little chart component, also displaying that content coming from the Lightning Conductor. So another tool that you can use to connect to the Lightning Conductor is the Lightning Filters web part, and this is actually free to. You can use it actually in combination with the data viewer and the Lightning Conductor simultaneously. And with that, you've got different types of filters that you can provide. So whilst you can filter, from the web part itself by hitting the drop down on each column, you've got the filter options, and here this makes more of a dashboard of it. So you've got one central filter component filtering multiple instances of web parts. So in there we can name it. So choose the document author and make this a people filter instead of a number filter. We can have it default to the current user. You again have transparent backgrounds and things like that. And then as we go into the Lightning Conductor properties, we could map this to my assigned to column. So as we go into the properties here, under columns, we can take the assigned to and say that this is equal to, and instead of filling this out, we're going to connect the web part to the choose document author. I should have chosen that task creator, sorry, or task assignee. And we'll map that to the title. Okay, so this is just filtering the data. So all of these are now assigned to Lightning tools. And if we drop that out, we get nothing. And if we put in maybe demo user 5, I think it was. Yeah, we get demo user 5's tasks and so on. And yeah, so that can literally connect to multiple components at the same time. And you don't just have to have the people filter. There's one for just about every type of metadata that you might want to connect to. So we've got text and date filters, there's choice filters, taxonomy filters, and so on, where you can connect that to the consuming web part. You could also connect a Lightning Conductor to itself as well. So as you choose, for example, a person, you'll be able to see related documents and that type of thing. Okay, so we've covered a fair amount of ground. One other thing that yeah, we'll just take a look at is the fact that whenever you connect to any of these quick configurations, they're often a good place to start. So I'm just going to connect to, for example, the planner plans and display those inside a task view. So as we do that and bring up our planner plan view, this view here of all the, we've got the drop down of different plans and then the tasks in each plan. If you want to configure that, you could use that as a starting point, and notice how it is using the JSON. You can then come down to the display of the JSON and start to customize it. And there'll be certain properties that you can customize just using exposed properties, or you can actually go in and make that code your own and customize it further if you wish. Another example of that one, we just name that one planner. When we get to events, and we'll just, sorry, stick that in the calendar view. Those calendar views, you can also customize things like conditional formatting as well. So on the calendar, if you want certain things to be certain colors, like birthdays in a particular color, meetings in another color, you can come in and customize that. And it doesn't just have to be as the example is, you can work with any column that you selected and go through and apply your conditional formatting in the way that you want it to be. And there's lots of other properties that you'll find dotted around. So in here, things like open the event in a dialog. So you don't lose where you're at by navigating away to a different site. That will always pop up in a dialog, so you can see the event in there. We've got the mobile mode as well, which is useful for calendars and so on. So lots of different things that you can configure for each type of data that you want to connect to. Okay, so we just come up to the end of the hour. I don't know if there's any questions, but I've not seen any popping in. If you do have any questions, any type of aggregation that you might want to perform, or any external data that you might want to connect to that you've not seen, feel free to drop it in. We can do our best to do a quick demo of it. Or yeah, if there's anything else that you want to ask, feel free to ask, and I can just fill for a moment with a couple of things while you think of your questions. One thing I didn't really address was calculated columns. That's a really powerful one. So as we build in our new views, if again we went to something like tasks in a grid view, let's just select that view in here. So where we've got each of these different columns, let's actually make that broader scoped. In fact, let's just work with this one. We did have a task view, sorry. So what I can do is create calculated columns as well, so we didn't touch on that one. And there's lots of advanced calculations that you can also use in here. So if you want to show item attachments, that's quite a regular one. We've written the code for you, so you can just use that and it will show any attachments to a list item. Equally, you can do more simple things. So if we just wanted like the date range, for example, we can make this a double, take our due date, insert that, and deduct the start date from it. And so on. So you can build out those calculations, and then you get your own calculated column where you can position that and display that with inside the view as well. Okay, still not seeing any questions in the Q&A. So I'll wrap up. I hope you found this useful. If anybody is seeing this for the first time, wishes to have a go with it, you can, of course, download a trial for free. You can do that by going to our website and under products, choose the Lightning Conductor, and you'll be able to download a trial from there. Equally with the Lightning filters and the data viewer, they're also available as a trial. And feel free to reach out to our tech support if you have any requirements for help in getting started, or if you're interested in actually a private demonstration, you'll be able to book that as well through our website. But for now, thank you very much for joining. I'll give you 4 minutes back or 3 minutes back, and hopefully see you on the next webinar next month. All right, thanks for now. Bye-bye.